Changqing searching for Tao Master Chang at South Stream. Along the path I find clog prints in the moss. White clouds rest upon the tranquil islet. Fragrant grasses block the idle gate. After rain, the pines are deeper green. Climbing the slope of the mountain, I reach the source of the stream. Flowers beside it reveal the Zen idea. Facing them, I also have no need for words. So we continue with Liu Changqing's poems. This one is a bit of a surprise in comparison with the ones we've been reading of late. This is an archetypal example of a religious poem. Yeah, we've encountered quite a few already in the anthology. They are a subgenre of Tang poetry. In fact, this belongs to an even more specific subgenre, if you wish, which we've also encountered in the anthology, I believe, which is going out to meet with a hermit and not finding him at home. So, as we've talked in the commentary to other poems, it was relatively frequent practice for scholar officials to, always hope for, yearn for the retired life, and in their free time, they sometimes went to mountains and to places where hermits could be found, especially famous hermits. Some of them might have been retired scholar officials themselves, and even the ones that weren't, generally Taoist and Buddhist monks, most of them would have had, more than a smatter of high culture. So they would have been interesting intellectual and conversational partners for scholar officials, and of course, religious counselors and advisors. So we encounter many poems in the classical canon in which scholar officials go to the mountains or to the woods to meet up with a scholar official, or with a hermit. It could be a Taoist or a Buddhist priest, and engage in intellectual religious conversation and in the pleasures of enjoying each other's cultured company. But as I said, another subgenre is not meeting the priest or the monk because he's not at his hut. What would a scholar official do in these circumstances? Well, we might imagine that these poems that we read in this style are instantiations of, an impromptu poem that is composed and left at the house, at the hut of the priest or the monk. It's almost like a visiting card poem, like saying, I came to visit you, I couldn't find you, so I leave this poem here. In fact, we read in the histories and in the texts that Tang poets had no problem and frequently wrote up their poems in walls, in pieces of paper that they gave to people. They composed them and had singers, sing-song waitresses learn them by heart and recite them afterwards. So you remember these poems, especially the pentasyllabic regulated poems, are pretty short. They're even shorter ones, the quatrains. So they're pretty easy to write or to memorize. In these poems that are about finding the master and not finding him at home, a very common elaboration is, on the one hand, describing the beautiful and ascetic landscape that surrounds the place where the hermit lives. There's also sometimes, or quite frequently, there's a sort of message like, I couldn't find you, but even without seeing you, just by being at your place, I found some measure of illumination, and understanding and religious truth. And both of those elements are present in this poem. I believe this is one of those typical poems which can be read in two ways. There's a literal degree of reading and an allegorical degree of interpretation based on the symbols and the images that are presented in the literal form of the text. So on the face of it, we have here just a description of Liu Changqing visiting Master Chang's abode at the southern stream, not finding him, and describing the things that he sees. But as I said, the images he uses act as metonymies as absent signifiers for Master Chang and for illumination. And we will comment on that when we give our impression of those symbols in each of the couplets. So main topic here, the retired life, seeking illumination, a bit of landscape, imagery, and yeah, I think that's it. So let's go on then. First couplet. Along the path I find clock prints in the moss. White clouds rest upon the tranquil islet. So in the first couplet we have, as usually happens in first couplets, the location, or we are located into this area where Master Chang lives and into the quest for finding him. So Liu Changqing is following a path, and he hasn't been able to see Master Chang, but he can see clog prints in the moss. So his traces are in the ground, so he must have passed by relatively recently through this path. And there must be a river also. The title points to that, Southern Stream, which must be near the hut of Dao Master Chang. And there are white clouds resting upon a tranquil islet. So we might imagine that Liu Changqing did see these things when he tried to find Master Chang, but they have a very symbolic meaning. So along the path, path in Chinese, if the character Dao is being used, has always a double significance. It's path, like the path you walk, but it's also a path of enlightenment. So in the path of enlightenment, I see the prints of Master Chang, which means I want to reach enlightenment and I'm following in the footsteps of Master Chang. That is meant to be taken here literally and metaphorically. Yeah, I'm searching for him, following his clock prints. I am following in his footsteps to try to reach some illumination. And the white clouds that rest upon the tranquil islet again act as metaphors for Dao Master Chang. Remember, we've talked in previous poems, white clouds is a very common image that is used to represent hermits, retired Buddhist or Taoist sages who live in the mountains. This comes from an anecdote in the 6th dynasties when one of these retired Taoist sages, I think it was Changqing, I'm not sure, was called to court by Liang Wudi, and he wrote an answer of the sort, you know, there are clouds here in the mountains, I can't bring them down to the court. He was talking about himself, very evidently. So the white clouds are in a tranquil islet. Both the clouds and the islet, with its tranquility, can represent Master Chang and his attainment of both things, of tranquility and of being a mountain hermit, a mountain sage. Next couplet. So the next couplet moves us onward. The first couplet, we had the search for Master Chang with only indirect traces of him. In the second couplet, we get his house. Again, the master hasn't appeared, but we have an object that references him and his presence. Fragrant grasses block the idle gate. After rain, the pines are a deeper green. So again, we don't find the master yet, but we must have found his abode, although his abode is not presented directly to our view either. We only get the gate that leads to it and the trees that form its background. So fragrant, we have two images of vegetation in here. So first, fragrant grasses block the idle gate. So literally, so this is a gate that not many people cross, perhaps only Master Chang. He has few visitors. So fragrant plants choke the entrance, but they're fragrant ones. Remember, fragrant plants always include a certain symbolism. They represent truth, purity, honesty, and a scholar official. So fragrance blocks the axis, fragrant grass. That's also, this is a parallelistic couplet, so I imagine the sense of smell, the nice fragrance, is contrasted with the sense of sight in the next line. After rain, the pines surrounding the house are a deeper green. Their beauty, their intense greenness, jewel-like greenness intensifies. Yeah. So grasses and pines, fragrant and green. So you can see some of the elements of the parallelism in the images. Okay, third couplet. So in the third couplet, we still haven't found the priest. the poet has moved on and he has reached the top of the mountain, the source of the stream, of that south stream that appeared in the title. Climbing the slope of the mountain, I reach the source of the stream. So again, just like the images in the first couplet, we can imagine this literally. Liu Changqing was looking for the priest, so he climbed up the mountain and he reached the source of that stream that appeared later in the title of the poem and perhaps surrounding the tranquil islet of line 2. But of course, reaching the source, is very, it's a very evident image. So reaching the source is going to the root of things. It's, getting to the root of the problem, getting to the root of illumination, we could say. So after the hard work of climbing the slope, of climbing the mountain, Liu Changqing reaches the source of the stream. The source of the stream, which could be Tao Master Chang himself, could probably more like illumination, and he reaches illumination up there. How is this illumination presented to the eyes of Liu Changqing? That's the last couplet. Flowers beside it reveal the Zen idea. Facing them, I also have no need for words. I think we've talked about this before. I imagine this Tao Master Chang of the title must have been a Zen Buddhist priest. Zen, that's the Japanese name, the Chinese name is Chang. And I think we've talked about the Chan sect. As opposed to other sects of Buddhism, the Chan sect believes in immediate illumination. It distrusts reason and logic. It believes illumination can be attained, like in a spark of wisdom. Very mistrustful of reading scriptures or following theological debates or traditions for achieving illumination. Buddhism of the Zen sect preconizes meditation, that's what Zen means or Chan means, and mental paradoxes, the typical koans of the Japanese Zen tradition, to break rational patterns of thought. This is a typical thing. What is the sound of one hand clapping, or if a tree falls in the forest, doesn't make any sound. And also achieving illumination through doing the most common everyday activities. So we get a bit of this here. So Liu Changqing doesn't need Master Chang, and he doesn't need any sermon to reach illumination in the last couplet. The flowers, just the simple flowers growing beside the river, they reveal the truth. Yeah? And facing them, there is no need for words. So as I said, this is a very Chan Buddhist topic, and it connects to the Chan scriptures. So in Chan legends, they believed in an esoteric transmission of Buddhism, of the Buddhist essential truth, which goes in line with their anti-scripture, anti-rationalist mentality. And their legend was that the Buddha was, surrounded by his disciples, and the one that would become the founder of the Chan sect, Kashyapa, Mahakashyapa, I think, he was with Buddha. Now, Buddha was wearing a flower in his ear or something like that. The flower fell. Buddha didn't say anything, but Kashyapa smiled. So there was no need for linguistic communication. Kashyapa managed to learn the truth of Buddhism in a sudden flash of illumination through this gesture, through this flower falling from the Buddha, without any words being emitted. And as I said, this is, the starting image, if you wish, of the Chan tradition. I think it's one that is being referenced here as well. So overall, quite a nice poem, religious poem, quite different from the others that we encountered by Liu Changqing, but not so different from others we've encountered in other poets in this anthology. So, nice piece.